Hello and welcome to the stream. I hope you're all having a good week so far and all had a good weekend. If there's any issues with the volume, please do let me know. All right, well, since we left off with Alice thinking she's all that and taking on Touko by herself, kind of with a cliffhanger, let's just jump right back in, shall we? She could hear the beasts breathing in her ear. It seemed she had been unconscious for a short time. Alice opened her eyes and took a deep breath. Each cough sent pain shooting through her body. Blood rose from the pit of her stomach, and she spat it onto the cold ground. When her vision returned, she was able to make out the distant sky, falling snow, and the golden wolf. The wolf panted. It stared at Alice, saliva dripping from its mouth onto her cheek. Razor-sharp fangs lined its jaws. Its fur was glossier than that of any animal she'd ever seen. Brutal, knife-like claws protruded from its massive, blood-stained paws. And yet, it did not smell like a beast. Surely the presence of such a noble creature, a human would feel like a lesser animal. Between Alice and the wolf was left over. The battle between Alice and the wolf was over before it had begun. After destroying the troll, it baptized Alice with its wicked claws, giving her no chance to escape. Its sideswipe had torn her abdomen like a sword, carving through her clothes and flesh all the way to her heart. Even so, not once did Alice make a sound. Wow, that's a really nice screenshot, to be honest. The wolf had her pinned and stared at her face. Her limbs felt ready to break at any moment. That was the situation she found herself in. Now, fully conscious, Alice stared at her enemy through pained eyes. She felt no fear, only cold reality sinking in. Sensing Alice's demeanor, the wolf suddenly paused, its paw still raised. They looked into each other's eyes.
そんなに血が出てるのに痛くないんだ。
The wolf's voice came as a surprise, but there was no doubt it had spoken.
それとも痛いのは平気なのかな。
The wolf's voice sounded innocent, almost childlike. It's in complete contrast to what had happened up to that point. The wolf smiled.
どっちにしろ我慢強いんだね、お姉ちゃんは。
The wolf opened its mouth wide and clamped its jaws around Alice's neck.
ベオ
Touko's tone was sharper than the wolf's fangs. The wolf froze.
トウコさん。
He let go and slowly turned his head toward the voice.
とどめは刺すなと言ったろ。余計な仕事を増やす気か、バカもん。
Oh shit.
それはそれで楽しいのに。ああ、退屈。話に聞いた橋の巨人も結局は他の生き物と一緒だったし。
The wolf backed away from Alice, as if no longer interested in its prey. The golden beast, to the golden beast, she was little more than an old chew toy.
なんだ、もう意識が戻ったのか。心もタフなら体も大概だな。骨まで砕いてその程度の出血とは。
Barely clinging to life, Alice stared at Touko. But not a stare of hatred and defeat, but one of disbelief. Alice simply wondered why Touko had brought such a beast.
ああ、紹介が遅れたな。彼はおそらく地上で現存している最後の人狼だ。北欧の奥地に生きる彼らの一族の中に現れた生粋の原種だよ。
Well, damn. The last known pure-blooded werewolf. Shit.
見ての通り、先祖返りなんて言葉じゃ表せない黄金の神秘でね。名前がなかったんで、わかりやすくベオウルフと呼んでいる。
ベオウルフ。
Alice's face was perplexed, even though she hadn't wavered when she was disemboweled. Beowulf, the name of the heroic giant slayer from Danish legend. It came from Old English, a combination of honeybee and wild beast, a bear, in other words.
なんでそんなちぐはぐな名前を。
ん？いや、可愛いからに決まってるだろ。
Perhaps because of the name or because of the golden beast itself. Fighting the pain, Alice struggled to read Touko. In this respect, she was worse than Aoko.
ついでに説明しておくと、周りの犬どもはベオが勝手に呼び寄せたものだ。私自身、マインスターの娘がただの畜生に傷つけられるとは思ってはいないよ。今のところはね。
Touko's mouth twisted into a grin. Not the warm one Sojyrou saw, but the merciless smile a victor displays to a loser. The disdain in Alice's eyes turned to anger. The golden mystic. How could Touko have brought such a creature into the human world?
何？需要と供給だよ。過疎化は人間だけの問題じゃない。彼らもいい加減 昔ながらの生活には限界が来たらしくてね。話し合いの末、高額で私が買い取った。
They had to have been a hell of a high price.
と言っても
Holy shit.
あくまで里から出すだけの権利だがね。お察しの通り、私の髪はベオとの契約に使い切った。自分の髪を使って分身を作るより強大な怪物を縛り付けた方がよっぽど健
So
全。
that's what she did with all her hair. While she was talking, Touko noticed something strange. An unusual sound. A preternatural sound that tore at the mind. A sound that should not have existed. And it was coming from the girl's open abdomen.
もう復元が始まったか。いや、というよりこれ。
何この匂い。トウコさん、なんかワクワクすること起きてない？
Smells like something amazing. Okay. Curious, Beowulf moved closer. Like a puppy examining a new toy.
見るな、あっちに行っていろベオ。正気を失っても知らんぞ。
Touko shooed the mud away with her hand. Beowulf lowered his head meekly and withdrew.
教育方針を間違ったかな。まったく、乙女の腹を見ようなんて恥を知れ恥を。
トウコさんだって見てるじゃない。
バカ。私は乙女だからいいんだ。
I'm not sure I'd call Touko a girl anymore, but I mean, she's kind of dead inside at times. If Aoko had been here, she would have blasted them away for their impudence, just as she did against Flat Snark.
まあ、しかしむごいな。こんなになるまで放っておくとは。マインスターは人の親とは言えまいよ。
With her gloved hand, Touko ran her fingers along the wound on Alice's abdomen. A flash of pain ran through Alice's body. Alice had held in her screams, but she finally let out a long breath. She turned her face away in pain or shame.
ほら、もう肌も復元している。骨格、血管はおろか、内臓にまで施されたおびただしいまでの刻印だ。生後、肉体に魔術回路を付加することは諸刃の剣だ。呪文と自分を一体化させることにより栄唱の手間を省き、術者に多大な利点をもたらす魔術刻印。しかしそれは多ければ多いほど苦痛を伴う。青崎の刻印は腕一本分。まあ君に比べれば少ない方だな。
The magic crests Touko referred to were inheritance of the Awazaki family passed down by their ancestors. They can only be inherited. Aoko had received the ones that were meant for Touko.
しかしそれも良し悪しだな。右腕に刻印をした青子の痛みは残る人間の体と神秘となった右腕とが反発する程度だ。通常の肉体が右腕を否定し抹消にかかる痛み。 精神的にも肉体的にも生じる幻痛は現在にも似て拭い去ることはできない。だがここまで来ると痛みも何もあるまい。そもそも生きている実感はあるのか？
Entirely sure pain ever really becomes trivial.
自分が人間だとまだ信じている？ああ、本当に。お互い非凡な死を持つと苦労するね。
Wait, Touko knows what sympathy is? Touko took Alice's body in her arms. The wounds from Beowulf had mostly healed. Even so, her breathing was shallow, likely due to the pain. Touko gently held the girl's face in her hand.
マインスターには恩がある。それに、私の相手はあくまで青子一人だ。
Alice's lungs, pained for oxygen, Touko pressed her lips to hers. The young girl wriggled, trying to escape, but Touko held her firmly. Beneath the blue moon, the two remained frozen. Then the sound of swallowing. Something solid slid down Alice's throat. With that, she went limp and her arm fell. After setting Alice down on her side, Touko stood up.
今のは七かまどに手を加えた私の特製品だ。そう簡単に解毒はできない。魔力を流せば体の中で暴発する仕組みになっているから気をつけなさい。ああ、口移しは私の趣味だから、特に気にすることはないよ。
As she desperately clung to consciousness, Alice looked up at Touko from the ground. The disgrace from the kiss was greater than the pain she felt in her body. Touko began walking away, her golden wolf in tow. Neither looked back to see Alice's hateful glare.
と、そうそう、一つ言い忘れていた。ベオが呼び寄せた野犬たちだけどね。公園の外にまだ山ほどいるんだが、困ったことに彼らは本来何を口にするべきかを思い出している。ベオの野生に刺激されたんだろう。獣はより強い獣に従うものだからな。
I see she's just gonna leave Alice to the wolves. And if Alice uses any magic, whatever Touko forced out her throat will explode. That sucks. In a roundabout way, Touko had read Alice her last rites. In nature, it was common for the weak that could no longer move to offer their bodies up to feed the strong.
じゃあ、私は行くよ。歩くことも満足にできないだろうが、無事に帰れるといいね、アリス。
With a twisted grin, the mage headed into the darkness. As her footsteps faded, the sound of growls grew louder. Alice could still barely focus her eyes. The hounds looked like monsters out of a picture book. Alice took a deep breath, her consciousness slipping away. The sky was blue, the trees were tall, the park was a graveyard. In the corner of her eye, though Alice could just about make out a solitary phone booth, the phone rang. It was the second time Sojyrou had heard its voice echo through the cold foyer. Only a few minutes had passed since Alice called. He wondered what she could want this time. The call persisted, determined not to leave him to his thoughts.
はい、クオンジですが。
あら、その声は宗十郎くん？
A cheery voice. Sojyrou had been expecting Alice. It was Touko Awazaki. Somehow Sojyrou was not surprised.
そうですけど、トウコさん、暇なんですか？
A hell of a lot better than Alice right now. He checked the time. He thought it was about midnight by now. No matter what the situation, Sojyrou always kept his cool. He could hear Touko trying to suppress a laugh. After taking a while to compose herself, she started talking again.
ごめんなさい。ちょっとツボ入っちゃったみたい。で、質問の開始ね。これがあんまり暇じゃないな。私も今日で終わらせる予定だから忙しいんだ。
偶然ですね。青崎もそんなことを言ってました。
やっぱり？そうね。こういう時は本当に姉妹だなって思うわ。昔からエンジンかけるタイミングだけは一緒だったから、あのことは。
I'm not sure timing is the only thing that they have in common.
ところで、青崎はやめてって言ったでしょ。私も青崎だからくすぐったいのよね。そう言われるの。
Sojyrou realized she was probably right. Awazaki's words made more sense now.
まあそんなわけだから長話をする気はないんだ。単刀直入に聞くけど。
It almost sounded like she was worried about her sister's whereabouts. But the cool-headed Sojyrou had not forgotten Touko was their enemy. Keeping Aoko and Alice in mind, he decided to be evasive.
さあ、なんて答えてほしいんですか、トウコさんとしては。
The question shifted the tone of the conversation drastically. Sojyrou could hear Touko muttering to herself in annoyance. Sojyrou was proving more quick-witted than she had anticipated. A change of track was required.
そうね。君には何も答えてほしくないっていうのが正解かな。第一印象で君を無視するのは良くない気がしてたけど、やっぱり私は宗十郎くんを手にかけたくはないみたい。君はこのまま無関係でいてちょうだいね。
Her warning came from the heart. Sojyrou responded flatly, once again not giving any sign either way. It seemed she wanted him to stay out of this too. Even Sojyrou could tell the girls were being kind in their own way. But who asked for their kindness?
じゃあ、さよならね。私は君が思ってるほど暇じゃないから。でも、最後に一つだけ。君を試すようで悪いんだけど、伝えておかないと一生恨まれそうだし。 なんで、そうならないように、責任の半分を君に押し付けちゃおうかな。
Touko giggled, a laugh to show she had him in the palm of her hand from the beginning.
さっきクオンジさんに会ってきたの。彼女から電話があったでしょ。
Her tone had not changed. She sounded as cordial as before. Even so, as soon as Sojyrou heard Alice's name, a chill ran up his spine.
彼女、今ひどい状態なんだ。満足に歩けないどころか、体中の刻印が活性化して破裂寸前。宗十郎くんが骨折の痛みを知ってるなら、うまい例えようがあるんだけどね。
My, are we ever gloating about messing up Alice?
まあ、ともかくだ。いつ気を失ってもおかしくない状態なんだけど、災難なことに怖い野犬に囲まれてるみたいなの。個人的な意見だけど、10分もあれば骨しか残らない結末になるでしょうね。
She spoke as if she was telling a joke. If it was a joke, it was in bad taste. However, Sojyrou knew this was anything but. She was telling the truth. He had not heard of dogs attacking anyone in town, but the noise he heard while on the phone with Alice suddenly made sense. Dogs, a pack of them, no doubt about it. They were surrounding their prey. Why had he not caught on sooner? Squeezing the receiver in his hand, Sojyrou cursed himself. Alice had been calling for help. Even when backed into a corner, she had not wanted to involve Sojyrou. Still, she needed help. The way she said his name so lightly.
場所は
He spoke abruptly. Even though he knew Touko was the enemy, he was confident she would answer him. That was the reason she called.
教えてあげてもいいけど、そうした瞬間に、君は私の敵になるのよ。その覚悟はある？
Sojyrou realized what was happening. He was being tested. By ignoring Alice, he would be confirming that he did not want to get involved. But if he decided to save her,
それで場所は
Sojyrou ignored Touko's question. Of course, he was not prepared to become her enemy, but he was even less prepared to let Alice die. He had lost his ability to think sensibly. Not that he was particularly good about that to begin with. Still, he would not waste any time in his deliberation. He would simply go with his instincts. It was one of the few times he had felt pride since coming down from the mountains.
そう。ちょっと残念だな。私は本当に君が気に入ってたのに。まあ、こうなることは分かってたけどね。場所はヤシロギの森林公園。受話器の下に地図があるでしょ。この前帰りがけにしおりを挟んでおいたから、それを参考にすること。繰り返すようだけど、10分持てば幸運。その後は1分ごとに奇跡の価値が上がるような状況よ。今の彼女は。
As he listened, Sojirou's expression turned to one of irritation. Mizaki and Yoshigiri were one station apart. How long would it take to get to the station from the mansion? usually just under 12 minutes. By the time he got off the train in Yoshirogi, nearly 30 minutes would have passed.
地図の上じゃ近いのに、区画整理された交通手段は不便よね。けど、急げば最終の電車には間に合うわ。ここで諦めた方が賢明だけど、君はもう私の敵だから。どっちにしたって、後悔のないようにね。
The line went dead. Sojyrou, not Touko, had hung up the phone. He memorized the map and made for the door. With no time to grab his coat, he ran out into the snowy winter night with the clothes he had on. All that remained in the hall was the discarded map. It showed Mizaki City. It was about 10 miles from the mansion to the nature park. 5 if you went in a straight line, but the streets were not that forgiving. 4 inches on the map, but so much further in reality. For the first time, Sojyrou cursed the town. Alice's injuries were not limited to her abdomen. The wolf had punctured a hole straight through to her back, lower vertebrae, and leaving both of her legs paralyzed. Or crushing her lower vertebrae and leaving both of her legs paralyzed. Damn! That is a massive amount of damage. Though her magic crests were repairing the damage, it would likely take another hour before recovery. At the very least, her heart and slender arms still worked. Although after crawling along the ground to the phone booth, those too were failing her. As the crest healed her wounds, a searing heat ran through her body that threatened to overwhelm her. It was as if her body was no longer her own, like she was transforming into another creature. The poison throbbing through her open wounds hurt emotionally more than physically. She was used to pain, but she could not escape the disquieting feeling. Not that she had any intention to. The moment she did, it would be her last. Alice wrestled with the discomfort from her abdomen and her magic crests. And with her consciousness holding on by a thread, she took the phone in her hand. It was unlikely Aoko would be there to pick up. Even so, with the stray dogs gathering around the booth, she had to try. It was Sojyrou who picked up. Alice knew she was better off just hanging up, but his name slipped out of her mouth. After pausing and fighting with herself for some time, an image of the innocent boy came to mind, and she hung up. Her instincts had won out. She could not let him get involved. And not just because he was an innocent bystander, it was more than that. To Alice, Sojyrou appeared that day because he was merely in the wrong place at the wrong time. Only the lightest of breaths passed her lips. Above her, the moon began to blur. Snow was falling again, so close, yet so far. The dogs began hurling themselves at the phone booth, to the chorus of hungry snarls. Thunk, thunk. She took one last deep breath and closed her eyes. Glass, an unusual material for a coffin. But the girl knew in some corner of her mind that she had made the right choice not to ask the boy for help. Some time passed. A peculiar sight came into view. A field of wild flowers. The clear sky was too blue. The flowers so numerous they made the field look barren. The sight was so dazzlingly beautiful she wished she could look away. This was probably all thanks to Father Winter. The cold wind carried a scent of paradise far removed, untainted by man or beast. It was a glimpse of the fields beyond winter. One could be forgiven for thinking they were the afterlife. Come to think of it, she remembered how funerals were sad, yet always beautiful. She cried. She made an incredulous whine, a sound of life. Her breathing was strained and erratic. Hollow and useless was the heart she had once used to fend off pain. It was as though she was in the space between disconnected body and mind. A crying woman and a silent child. High was the sky, deep was the forest, unmoving were the people. No footsteps or voices of salvation came. Who was that looking innocently up at the sky in stillness? When she came to, Alice was going up a familiar hill. The cold night air had all but frozen her hands, or feet. She shook as you would expect from someone whose abdomen had been torn apart.
Shizuki.
She could barely comprehend that she was being carried slowly up. Shironizuka, there we go. Sojyrou had Alice on his back and was silently ascending the slope. His calm eyes seemed to be suffering from the bitter cold. He did not seem to be dressed for the time of year. Not even a coat. His exposed neck and hands were ice cold.
どうしてここにいるの?
Does it look like, Alice, he's packing your sorry broken ass home? Alice asked, still slumped over his frame. She tried to move, but to no avail. The last thing she wanted was to rest her entire weight on someone else.
トウコさんから電話があった。アリスが危ないって。青崎はともかく、アリスは意地を張りすぎだ。 あの状況で助けを呼ばないのはどうかしてる。そりゃ
Sojyrou spoke with a scolding tone, his eyes kept firmly ahead. His words were directed at himself rather than the girl on his back.
しずきくんは
Well, I mean, he kinda does now.
だろうね。けどこれで関係はできた。館に着いたら話してもらうぞ。
Sojyrou focused on climbing the hill. The slope would get steeper from here to the mansion. The thought of Sojyrou climbing the steep hill with her on his back surprised Alice.
降りるわ。もう大
How
丈
the
夫だ
hell
か
you
ら。
are?
お腹をむき出しでかい？この方が少しは暖かいよ。それにアリスは薪より軽い。山じゃこの程度は朝飯前だから気にしないでくれ。息が上がっているのは公園まで急いだからだし。
Only out of breath because he hauled ass to the park. Holy crap.
まあその意味はなかったんだが。
なぜ
No shit, why not? What happened to all the dogs?
俺が着いたら犬はさっさと散っていった。初めからトウコさんはそういうつもりだったんだ。
Oh, as soon as he got there, the dogs all took off.
アリスをどうにかするつもりもなければ時間制限もなかった。喜ぶべきことなんだろうけど。
Sojyrou said dejectedly, but he was wrong. While Touko did not want to kill Alice per se, she would not have cared if she had died. At least, that's the way Alice saw it. She did not know how long it took Sojyrou to get to the park, but if he had not come, the phone booth would have collapsed and she would have been dead. Alice did her best to suppress her thoughts and feelings. She felt silly at the thought of correcting him, and it would matter little anyway. The thought of her trying to thank him was more painful than her open wounds.
もしかして公園からずっと。
仕方ないだろう。電車終わってたんだから。タクシーを使えばよかったんだけど、あいにく持ち合わせがなくて。
Oh, the things we leave behind when we're in a rush.
ほんと、今日ほどお金の不便さを思い知った日はない。
For the first time today, Sojyrou let out a sigh. There was no point taking a break. He had already traveled close to 6 miles like this. Perhaps the fatigue was getting to him. Sojyrou was more upset with his own weakness than the difficulty of the trek.
でもそれを言うならお金の大切さじゃない。
使えるものがあるのにお金がないだけで使えないんだから、それって不便って言わないか？
He's not entirely wrong with that. The innocence of his question made Alice briefly forget her pain. She too felt distant from the real world. But compared to the boy carrying her, she felt like a regular citizen.
何かあなたらしいわ。
It kinda is just like him to say. Alice smiled to herself. As Alice rested her head, something soft touched her cheek. The collar Aoko had given him.
館に着いたら着替えるんだ。お腹の血も拭って。落ち着いたら今で話そう。トウコさんに言わせれば、俺もこれで敵らしいから。
With those words hanging in the air, they reached the top of the hill. The gate in the woods stood before them. Beyond it, illuminated by the pale moonlight, stood the mansion. Looking up at it, the girl felt a little disappointed. A natural reaction, yet she could not place where her sadness was coming from. Once they entered the mansion, Alice slid off Sojirou's back and walked towards the West Wing. The West Wing was her domain. However, after only a few steps, she collapsed to the floor.
アリス
Sojyrou rushed over to her, but she raised her hand. Her gesture told him he was not to come closer. He stopped in his tracks, a concerned look on his face. Her pale skin gleamed with sweat, her expression uncharacteristically strained.
平気。部屋に戻るぐらいの力は戻ったわ。服を作ろってくるから、あなたはここにいて。すぐに戻ってくるから。そうしたら。
The pained look in Alice's eyes told Sojyrou they would talk later. He knew he could not stop her. Sojyrou reminded himself that she was the one in pain, not him.
それじゃあ戻ってきたら話を聞かせてくれ。
Alice took a deep breath before slowly disappearing down the corridor. An uneventful 5 minutes passed. Alice returned wearing a fresh set of black clothes, but her complexion remained pallid. With a small sigh, she carefully leaned against a pillar in the foyer and slid down until she was sitting.
アリス、傷が痛むなら無理せず横になった方がいい。
Yeah, a bed is a much better place than propped up against a pillar in the foyer. Sojyrou sat across from her on the cold floor.
傷はもう痛まないわ。横になる必要もない。この体の異常は七かまどを飲まされたせいだから。どうあっても治らないもの。
じゃあせめて毛布とか。
いいから、気遣いはしないで。ここなら寒さも関係ないから。
She seemed to be telling the truth. Sojyrou remembered Aoko telling him that as long as Alice is inside the mansion, she would be comfortable.
あったかいのならいい。それで七かまどっていうのは。
薬草の一種よ。7回かまどで焼いても燃え残ることから付けられた名前で、紅葉は魔除け。普通の人には良くない程度だけど、私や青子には少し厄介ね。体内での魔力生成そのものに抵抗されてしまうから手の打ちようがない。
Well, damn, that sucks.
毒と思っていいのか。
Yeah, I guess it is a type of poison then.
いえ、本来は薬草よ。今は傷を治すために魔力を使っているから苦しいけど、傷が完治すればおとなしくなるわ。魔術さえ使わなければ七かまども反応しないから。単純な話、七かまどを消化するまで私は役には立たないだけ。
Alice paused. She decided not to say how many days that would take.
別にしずきくんが心配することじゃないわ。こんなの 血が流れる程度の痛みだから。
She worked hard to keep her tone calm. Aoko had barely blinked when she was struck in the back, so mages must have unusually high pain thresholds. Sojyrou was surprised and bewildered by what she had said. If wounds didn't count as long as the pain wasn't too bad, then nothing would hurt except an injury that killed you.
わかった。話をするのは明日にしよう。今日はとにかく体を休めてほしい。
明日になっても私の容体は変わらないけど。
いいんだ、それでも。アリスはもっと体を大事にしてくれ。
He stood up.
部屋まで送るよ。それとも今で休むか？西館には入ったことはないからアリスの部屋もわからないし。
ここでいいわ。青子を待たなくちゃいけないから。
Alice looked up at the skylight. The moonlight illuminated her pained face. The foyer looked like it belonged to a rundown castle. Only the moon and Alice seemed more vivid than reality. Where did her strength come from? Sojyrou stared at her. Without understanding the significance of Alice's gaze, he turned his gaze to the night sky, powerless as it was. For the third time that night, the silence was broken by the sound of the phone ringing. Before Sojyrou could move, a thin shadow bolted across the foyer. By the time he realized it was the weakened Alice, she had already taken the receiver in her hand.
Aoko.
It was the first time Sojyrou had heard Alice sound concerned. Her tone was infinitely graver than when she was enduring her own pain. Alice's question received only a short response from the voice on the other end. It was a voice more frail than Alice's, like a flickering flame about to turn to smoke.
ごめん、やられた。
The phone was far from Sojirou's ear, but the words he picked up were very unlike her. Despite saying so little, because he had said so little, the weight of Aoko's defeat struck Sojyrou hard. Alice silently set the receiver down. Only moments before, her body had been fighting the pain. Now it felt stronger than ever. It was like a scarecrow transforming into a beautiful stone statue. Seeing this, Sojyrou finally understood. Alice's expression when she looked at the moon had come from her trying to accept an immutable reality. Wow, what a chapter that was! Chapter 11, Witch on the Holy Night 1. Aoko had not hung up, but the line remained silent. Alice set down the receiver, quickly putting on her mantle, and made for the entrance, moving in her injured body with sheer willpower, by sheer willpower alone. Along the way, she paused, turned to Sojyrou, and looked directly at him.
青子に何かあったんだな。
Alice hesitated for a moment before pushing aside her anxiety and grabbing his hand.
しずきくん、一緒に来て。
待ってくれ。一緒にってどこに？
相田教会まで。青子の方は営利神父にお願いするしかないから。
相田教会って病院の横にある？
そう。知っているのなら問題ないわね。説明する手間も省けたわ。
Alice left the mansion and made her way down the tree-lined path. She was clearly determined, but the look in her eye betrayed her pain.
アリス、連絡をするなら電話は？
Sojyrou asked Alice, whose grip on his hand was light but unyielding.
教会の人にならもう知らせた。もしかして病院のことを言っているなら、それこそ無駄よ。ハイヤーなんて言うけど、空を飛ぶわけでもないし、今は助けを呼ぶより、助けに行かないと間に合わない。
But I thought Alice could use Magecraft right now. Alice had thought of everything. She turned to the mansion and lightly snapped her fingers. In response, a window opened and countless starlings took flight.
1番隊は索敵。2番隊と3番隊は現場に向かって応急処置を。在庫切れになってもいいわ。まだ生きているなら、青子の心臓を止めないで。
Alice commanded the birds firmly.
しずきくんは裏庭から青子の自転車を持ってきて。
Sojyrou let slip his discomfort at the thought of that thing. The custom-made red bicycle. When he was cleaning the incinerator, Aoko had verbally assaulted him for nearly scratching it.
いいけど、どうするつもりなんだ、アリスは。
I have a feeling that bike is getting wrecked.
ここにいるより、教会にいた方がしずきくんは安全よ。それに、私も急がないといけない。しずきくん、2人乗りできる？
While Sojyrou had seen people riding tandem, he was confident he could imitate them. He still wasn't quite certain he could trust a bicycle with his life. Moreover, his frame was so light, he was unsure he could support both their weights.
2人乗りってことは、アリスが後ろに乗るのか？
できないなら、いいわ。
Alice turned away as if to snub him, then began walking. Unfortunately for Sojyrou, he was now on her bad side.
いや、そういう意味じゃないんだ。アリスとはイメージが合わなかったから。
Ignoring his pleas, she continued briskly toward the woods. There was no way she was going to ride the bike now. Sensing her stubborn streak, he desperately called out to her.
待った。今のはこっちが悪かった。すぐに持ってくるから、怒るのはつけにしておいてくれ。
Alice stopped. As soon as he saw her stop, he hurried to the rear courtyard, grabbed the key from where it was hanging, and used it to unlock Aoko's bicycle. By the time Sojyrou brought it back to the front of the mansion, Alice was continuing toward the forest.
アリスの性格、なんとなくつかめてきたな。
Muttering to himself, he straddled the bike. He rested his foot on a pedal. It felt tight but sturdy. Confident the bike could support his weight and Alice's, he began pedaling.
アリス
She turned as he called out to her, before shooting him a piercing glare.
行こう。後ろの荷台に乗ってくれ。でもクッションがないから痛いと思う。辛かったら言ってくれ。止めるから。
私は大丈夫よ。しずきくんが嫌じゃなければの話だけど。
Oh, she's not even gonna try now. He had hit the nail on the head. Alice definitely had a grudge over the smallest things.
そういうことなら問題ないよ。アリスが後ろにいてくれるのは嬉しい。それで、行き先は間境界でいいんだな。
Unabashed and undaunted, he plowed on. His tone seemed to ease Alice's mood. She nodded calmly and took a seat on the luggage rack at the rear, above the rear tire.
手を回すけど、私が触れても平気。
ん？大丈夫だよ。体力があるのはさっき証明しただろ。
Alice silently wrapped her arms around Sojyrou. Once she held on tightly enough, he gripped the handlebars.
よかった。
He said quietly.
何が良かったの？
Sojyrou turned to her, an ambiguous expression on his face, and then began pedaling vigorously. He let go of the brakes and the bicycle hurled down Roenzuka's steep incline. Surprised by the sudden speed, Alice gasped and clutched Sojyrou tighter. She almost protested, but stopped when she saw the serious expression on Sojirou's face. Instead, she decided to tighten her grip. Yeah, probably a wise choice there, Alice. Under the night sky, a young girl had put her faith in a young boy. Faster than a roller coaster, the bicycle hurled towards Miyazaki Station. Around the station, there was no sign of cars or people. While the town slept under the snowy blanket, two people were racing like the wind. Well, he pedaled, the boy said.
本当によかった。二人乗りが思ったより簡単で。
But he was alone in his relief. It was their first bicycle ride together, and they spent it speeding down an empty highway. The boy's words were lost to the howling wind, fortunately. In spite of the late hour, there were still lights on in the church. Originally, the only light at this time of night came from the entrance to the a sleepless hospital, ever vigilant and ready to receive patients. However, this was a quiet town with little nightlife. The hospital saw perhaps one emergency patient per night, however, and it was not equipped to handle tonight's sole patient. It was a little before 1 o'clock in the morning. "Hey, Dawson, no need to apologize. Glad you could make it." Leaving the bicycle outside, the two headed into the church. With its snow-covered roof, the church looked like it was wearing a white hat that lit up the darkness. In the entrance stood a tall shadow.
クオンジさん。
The man's voice was placid. Dressed in a long coat, he had been waiting for Alice.
エイリ神父、青子は？
ユイカが見ています。私が駆けつけた時には手遅れでした。青崎の家に伝令を願いたいのですが。
Yeah, there's no need to notify her family. There really isn't.
青子はそれを望まないわ。それに、あちらも今は城に囚われているそうです。今夜の相手は、真っ先に青子の祖父の動きを封じたようですから。
The two exchanged pleasantries. Sojyrou did not move from the foot of the stairs.
おや、そちらは。
Actually, I haven't watched any more episodes of Black Lagoon. I have been watching Parasite Maximum, actually. I just finished episode 9, like 2 hours ago, maybe? Though the father seemed calm, his words had an edge to them. As if to protect Sojyrou from his gaze, Alice stepped between them.
彼は青子の使い魔。契約はまだなされていないけれど。
使い魔ってアリス。
Sojyrou was about to complain, but Alice shot him a fiery glare. I'm actually really kind of enjoying it at this point. I gotta say, Miki, that damn parasite his name escapes me, but the main character guy, his parasite is freaking hilarious. I mean, when it's not like being all murdery and stuff. It shot him a fiery glare that all but said, "Just shut up and play along."
そうですか。そのような申告はありませんでしたが、届けが遅れたのは不問としましょう。
I was not expecting him to have to go and kill his own mother after she got like a parasite taken over her. Otherwise, yeah, it is kind of a dark show. I have to agree with that.
外部の魔術師と交戦中でしたからね。あなたたちはその撃退を最優先にした。ということで。
Alice nodded in thanks.
では通ります。彼の同行を許可しなさい。
ご自由に。私はこれより朝廷に向かいます。 管理者が変わるのなら、両教会への資料を用意しなければいけませんので。ああ、留守中は律香に任せてありますから、必要なものがあれば彼女に。
Seriously? Ritsuka, huh? Actually, I kinda am liking it more than Black Lagoon, but I will be watching some more Black Lagoon. I'm just gonna have to do it. Like, now that I've watched a few more episodes of Parasite Maximum, next I'll watch a few more episodes of Black Lagoon, and I think I might switch back and forth between the two. As if passing the baton, Father Airy exited the church. Sojyrou took 2 full steps back to give him a wide berth. Oh, we are glaring at people today, mean old priests. The priest had a dignified air about him. To put it bluntly, he was strikingly beautiful. Straight nose, glistening lips, not a single imperfection on his mildly effeminate face. But that only went as far as his appearance. His manner lacked any hint of softness or grace. Oh yeah, Black Lagoon gets way more interesting. I mean, like I said, I've only seen the first couple episodes of that one, so it has not a whole lot's going on just yet. Just by looking at him, he could tell he was dependable, like tempered steel, despite being somewhat unapproachable. The priest the priest disappeared silently into the night, the darkness of his coat overpowering the moonlight. In awe, Sojyrou watched him leave. Oh, like Parasite Maximum. It's about to get even more interesting. Well, damn. I mean, that poor kid's life has already gone all kinds of sideways. In his own way, Sojyrou was expressing affection. For some reason, Father Airy's distant tone made him feel nostalgic. Alice gave Sojyrou a deathly stare.
気を許さないで。彼は教会の人間よ。私たちを監視する側だけど、今回は彼の手を借りるしかなかっただけ。許されるなら、真っ先に消えてほしい人間だから。
She does not like him much. Damn. Her curse ringing in the air, Alice placed her hand on the door to the chapel. Well, I mean, like I said, making him kill his own mother, that was fucked up. And now his dad's pretty much just a depressed drunk. He's alienated his favorite girl. So, I mean, like I said, and apparently now that Miki has mended the guy's heart, friggin' there are little bits of him floating all over the inside the guy, so he's like kind of cold and detached now. They were twice her height and who knows how heavy. It did not look like she could open them any time soon. Sojyrou climbed the stairs 3 at a time and helped Alice push the towering doors inward. The dim light of the chapel brought with it the familiar scent of burning oil. The ecclesiastical interior was breathtaking. The tall ceiling, the stained glass windows on every wall, it all felt intended to illustrate the presence of the Holy Spirit within those chambers. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking, that he's just trying to push everybody away right now, so that, of course, at the same time, pushing them away kind of puts them at greater risk, I think, too. But yeah, I think he's trying to just push everybody away to try and protect them, but at the same time, like I said, I think it might not go the way he thinks protecting them is gonna go. Hat part. Well, just recently there was an episode where he found a dying dog in the middle of the street and kind of held it while it died and then threw it in the trash can. Which is why she's so pissed at it, which was why she was so pissed at him for a while. Other than that, I'm not sure what cat part you like. So maybe the cat part that you're thinking of is further on? Anyway, like the foyer in the Kwanji estate, there was not a single heater. The bitter cold made the chapel feel more severe. Yeah, absolutely. That dog part was just wild. Crazy. The gentle voice echoed through the chapel, incongruous to its surroundings. It was the voice of a woman.
リスカさん、奥。
Alice made her way past the rows of pews towards the front altar. Sojyrou closed the large doors and hurried after her.
早かったわね。
She's pretty.
これから迎えに行こうと思ったのに。
Wow, that just kind of slipped out real quick. You got the...
使える足があったから。
I had another pair of legs. I love it. So blunt about it.
足って、あれ？あなた。
お、
Sojyrou showed himself, surprising the woman. They stared intently at each other, wondering what each other was doing here. I mean, yeah, he would have died if the parasite hadn't have done what it did. But yeah, he really... It seems he's lost the ability to feel empathy now.
ああ、うん。まずいことに知り合い。宗十郎さん、引っ越したって話だけど、もしかしてあっちゃんのところに下宿してるの？
Yeah, that's what he meant. That he was staying at Ali's. Yeah, that's it. Sojyrou nodded. Alice turned visibly sour at the unexpected development.
どういうこと？しずきくん、律香さんとはどういう関係？
関係って、そう。お魚屋さんでしょっちゅう割引してもらったり、荷物持ちを頼んでみたり、たまにお茶飲んだりする主婦の友みたいな。
He was like every housewife's best friend. Oh damn. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. His humanity is somewhat lessened because of his merging with Miki to fix his heart.
意味がわかりません。律香さん結婚していないでしょ。
Needless to say, Sojyrou was also not a housewife's best friend. And all that suggested, but there were more urgent matters at hand.
うわぁ、そこを突っ込むのか。あっちゃん、私にだけは一切妥協がないのはどうかと思うの。
律香さんの場合、どこまで本気かわからないから。お
Yes,
かしな
he's
ところは
definitely
全部
more
追求してお
logical
かない
and
とい
less
けないだけよ。
emotional.
あら素敵。仲のいい姉妹みたいね、私たち。じゃあ、その信頼に応えて本当のこと言うと、彼とは町内会の顔見知りよ。スパイ行為とかそういうんじゃないし、そもそもそんな器用な人じゃないでしょ、
He could be a
宗十郎さん
spy, just look at him. Harsh.
本当？
Alice stared straight at Sojyrou to let him know that she was mad at him for hiding this from her.
本当だ。魚屋でバイトしてる時に知り合った人だ。前に親切にしてもらったんで、お礼にイワシを一匹サービスしたら、それ以来ごひいきに。
そうそう。商店街で買い物してれば、嫌でも宗十郎さんと
Everybody
は
who
顔見
shops
知りになるわ。
downtown knows Sojyrou. Oh damn.
あっちゃんも怒るぐらいなら買い物に来ればいいのに。密かな商店街のアイドルです、彼。
The secret stud of the shopping district. I mean, I could watch 2 episodes of Black Lagoon, 2 episodes of Parasite Maximum, 2 episodes of Black Lagoon. I could do it that way. Might start confusing the two, though.
アイドルとは人気者という意味で、値切りやすいかもって意味じゃないような。
His apparent popularity would have to be questioned another time. Collecting herself, Alice focused on the door in the recess of the church.
律香さんの事情は知りませんが、彼は青子の連れです。その他に説明はいりますか？
ああ、やっぱりそういうことなのね。ま、言いたいことはいろいろあるけど、今はそれどころじゃないし。ええ、了解したわ。他ならぬあっちゃんの頼みだし、特殊な例だけど、彼はこちらで保護しましょう。
Alice nodded and began walking to the door.
アリス。
ダメよ、宗十郎さん。
As Sojyrou was about to follow Alice, Ritsuka stepped in his way.
あなたは行ってはいけません。彼女たちに任せなさい。
she asserted bluntly. I actually forgot to figure out how to do that. To be perfectly honest, I've been so busy with work lately. The hotel I work for has been like packed. Like, I mean packed. We've had what? Basically a full house for the last like 2 weeks. It's been insane. I haven't had enough time to really do much of anything. I mean, I make the time to record my episodes twice a week, and I, find my time to do my streams. But as for things like that, I haven't had a whole lot of time. And yeah, there is always another time that we could do that. I promise you it will happen. I don't know when. Hopefully the hotel slows down soon and I can, like, I don't know, put my head back on straight. How is FGO going? Pretty good, I'd say. Still waiting for Ordeal Call to come out. I threw, like, what? 400 and some odd Saint Quartz and probably 16 or so tickets at the new banner that came out yesterday for the for Larval Tiamat. I managed to, in all of that, 400 quartz-ish and like 16 tickets, and I only got NP2. I threw more at her, but I need to save the rest of my quartz and tickets for Draco. Absolutely. Sometimes I blink and my whole day's over and I'm like, what the absolute hell? Where'd my day go and how come I didn't get anything done? Meanwhile, Alice had reached the door and entered further into the chapel.
言ってはいけないって。
あなたのためよ。青子の容体は普通の人が見ていいものじゃない。気分を悪くするだけ。それとも嫌な思いをしてもいいくらい青子が心配なのかしら。
Sojyrou was not able to give an immediate answer. It had finally hit him just how bad a state Aoko must be in. Based on Alice's condition when he found her, he intuited that Aoko's injuries might be even worse. He tried to imagine her expression in that state, but could not.
青崎相手に心配なんかしません。
Literally, he had never been worried about her before. Not truly. You could only get one level done in your game because you've been so busy? Damn. Damn. That's rough. I mean, I can totally understand that. Because I haven't been able to get into, other than to, pull for Tiamat, and I missed the last, like, 3 or 4 days of the event that was going on. I mean, I've been getting my login bonuses, but other than that, I haven't had time to really do anything. So I hear you on that, not having time to get stuff done.
でも会いに行くのね。
はい。
He answered her reflexively. Ritsuka sighed at the boy's naivete, but nonetheless stepped aside.
どうぞ行ってらっしゃい。
I'm glad you have some free time and you chose to spend it here. Means a lot to me. Thank you.
アリスさんが使ったドアから入って4番目の部屋よ。今一番取り込んでる頃だから、ゆいちゃんの邪魔だけはしないように。
Sojyrou thanked her and went after Alice, leaving Susie in self-proclaimed everybody's friendly neighbor alone.
さて、ゆいかあたりなら止めるんでしょうけど、私は宗十郎さんの味方だし、傷つく男の子とか大好物だし。少々スパルタと自覚しておりますが、これも親切な姉心と思って、宗十郎さんには後悔していただきましょう。
The kid doesn't know what regret means, okay? She spoke with force, but her words echoed aimlessly around the chapel. With a sigh, she shrugged her shoulders and made the sign of the cross in a rather unpious manner. Haven't been able to watch anime either? Aw. I feel bad for you on that one. I mean, I make time to squeeze in some anime, just mostly because I promised I would. So I kind of had to make some time for some anime, but yeah, no, it's been absolutely nuts. His lack of hesitation had left a pain in her heart. And not because he did not look back at her, but because he was choosing to ignore the primal fear inside him. An elderly man once said, "An animal's death and a human's are two different things. You may think they are the same, but they're different to the core." Our heads have known the difference since the dawn of man. An animal's corpse, be it a pig's or a deer's, is different. If the swing of an axe or a hatchet is violent, then so must a human corpse be. Therefore, before you see with your own eyes, you should at least understand with your ears. Listen closely, Sojyrou. When a person dies, blood flows like a crimson river. It's too much to bear. Perhaps because he was not used to the stone path beneath his feet. Sojirou's mind wandered back to the words he'd heard as a child. The instant he opened the door, there was a palpable change in the air. The room was small, with only a simple bed and a small wooden dresser. And there, on the bed, was lying on her side. Tending to her was the woman he'd just seen in the chapel, Ritsuka. No, she only looked a lot like her. Her eyes were closed and her garments covered in blood. That's why you're fine with waiting? Awesome. I'm glad that works for you. I mean, it kind of... Neither of us really have a choice in how busy we are, so... But yes, I will definitely get to the more episodes of Black Lagoon. And make it through more of Parasite, but oh boy, so much to do, so little time to do it. He had met her maybe once before. Yuka, she was a nun at the church. She was doing something to... Yuika held a pair of scissors and some thread. Her hands moved delicately, yet quickly, as though playing an organ. Her movements were precise, as if flawlessly reading sheet music. One by one, the supply of bandages diminished. Bandages recently applied to the wound were quickly replaced with fresh ones. Gauze was placed everywhere to try and cope with the amount of blood. Once white cloth was now dyed red and discarded. The dressings scattered around the floor resembled roses. In a wilted rose garden, the nun played her organ. The scene looked unlike any reality Sojyrou knew. It was clear why the air had changed. There was a savage odor in the room. Even though he was experiencing it for the first time, he knew what it was. The smell burned his lungs. He could not bring himself to look at the bed. Fighting his feelings, his eyes refused to move there. He noticed Alice next to the bed. Ever expressionless, she looked like a statue next to a grave. Yeah? Oh man, we didn't get as much snow as I kind of thought we were gonna get this year. But, I mean, we got a decent amount. It's more or less all melted now. Except she was trembling, ever so slightly. It could have been from fear, anxiety, rage, or a combination of the three. Before her lay a life on the verge of death. But whose life, it was difficult to tell with only a glance. Some sort of puppet covered in bandages, perhaps. Her hair should be beautiful, but it fell flat, disheveled. Despite her short breaths, her chest convulsed. Up and down, up and down. Facious though the thought was, Sojyrou recalled the rodeo machine on the roof of the department store. The painkillers and anesthesia should not have been working. New bandages were soaked crimson in seconds. Her fingernails bit into the sheets. Her face twisted in agony. Anesthesia would not be enough, so if she was still alive, she must be conscious too. It worried him that no one seemed concerned about this. In this state, she would surely lose her mind before her life. In short, the boy never wanted to see anything like this ever again. Really? So much snow that it actually made hills. Damn. I don't think we ever got that much at once. Where I am. I mean, we got, I think, 2 feet at once, but I think that was the most we got in a single snow dump all winter. Bed sheets should be white, not red. Well, unless they're red satin sheets, okay? Nothing wrong with that. With every blink, the color deepened. Sojyrou was finally forced to accept that the bleeding mess in the center of it was her. He felt the blood surge in his veins. The squeaking of the bed, the snip of the scissors, the gasp of agony, it all faded. All he could hear was his own pounding heartbeat. The smell of the blood she choked up sent a wave of nausea through him. His knees abandoned him. You got hit like that 4 times? Shit. Damn, I'm sorry. That's a shit ton of snow. Or if you prefer, a metric butt ton. And it was perfectly understandable. His brain had to shut his consciousness off to protect itself. The mind could only take so much reality. He would give anything never to see something like that again.
そうか。青子ちゃんは全部わかっているんだね。
You can make a fort with that much snow. An actually decent-sized one, to be honest.
自分だけのことじゃなくて、この後に起きることも、何が残って何が残らないのかも、それでも自分であり続けられるということは、とても強いことなんだよ。
And on she went. I kind of like her smile, but she just had to go and say the one thing I wished she hadn't. The last day of middle school seemed so long ago. As the ephemeral cherry blossom petals danced around, my little dream was crushed. I never really considered myself strong. At least until I began remembering those words from time to time.
青崎は分かってると思ってた。いや、きっと分かってるんだな。だから、そこが強いんだろうね。
And lately, an idiot who said things like that had appeared in my life. I knew I always judged people more harshly than those around me, but to have someone I'd only known for a few days point that out was like a stab in the chest. Not only that, the words sounded so familiar. They made me so angry I couldn't see straight. Only him and one other person have ever said anything like that to me. Then again, I suppose my sister said the same thing without actually saying it. You're different from us. But me, being me, I took it as a curse rather than a compliment. My actions, my choices, my morals, all the good and bad I've done. When all's said and done, am I really any better than anyone else? Of course I am. I'll never sacrifice myself for those around me. They just had to call me strong, true to myself, in spite of how alone, stubborn, and ridiculous I know I can be. When I was younger, it only confused me. I mean, I don't know any other way. I am who I am. The frustrating fact is, I simply don't have the courage to give up. So why? Why do I get treated special for doing what comes naturally? The sunlight stirred her. Maybe it was the pain from having her whole body held together by arcane threads. But Aoko felt like she'd had a silly dream. She gulped air through her painful, parched throat. Gray rays of light shone through a small window, bringing her back to reality.
体中かゆ。
Unable to bear it, Aoko attempted to roll over. Except she could only move her right arm. She tried lifting her arm, but couldn't feel anything past her elbow. Once she stopped concentrating on her damaged arm, it fell to the bed like a stone.
さて。
Aoko took in her surroundings, moving only her eyes. Evidently, she had been asleep in this bed. Unable to feel certain parts of her body, she felt like a robot. The room was tiny and undecorated. It was like an apartment without a tenant. Judging by the good repair, she guessed she was in Adia Church. Outside seemed closer to noon than morning. What would I give this one so far? Well, let me ask you, before I answer that, let me ask you one question, Dawson. How many chapters are there? Because, I mean, we're on chapter 11 now. How many chapters total are there? Idly, she thought it could be enough to melt the snow outside. And then finally she noticed the figure of a girl. Next to her bed, Alice Kawanji was sitting in a chair, unmoving.
おはよう、アリス。
She called out to her all too casually. "13 chapters and one side ending, and one side chapter after the story end. So effectively 3 chapters to no, yeah, effectively 3 chapters to go. I'm gonna give it a 7. Probably a 7 to an 8. I would have liked to have had, had some choices that I could make. That would have been nice. Um, but it is what it is. I'm actually really enjoying the story, so yeah, I give it 7, 8 out of 10. Yeah, it was an 8 for you. Yeah, like I said, I give it a higher rating if it gave me like, some actual choices that I could make, or, you know, other than just, going chapter by chapter, page by page through the book. I mean, that's great too, especially if a story is incredibly well written, which this one is. So, I mean, I'm really enjoying it. I kind of expected Alice to do a little bit better against Touko, but apparently she got her ass handed to her pretty damn quick. And so did Aoko, so you give the Tsukihime remake 10 out of 10? Well, then they damn well better get it on Steam like friggin' quick. It was more difficult to talk than she thought. Alice was her typical stoic self, although Aoko did not notice a glimpse of concern in her eyes.
寝てないんでしょ。肌が荒れてる。
努力はしたわ。けど、瞳子さんに飲まされたものが解毒されるまで眠れそうにないの。半端な痛みは、こういう時に生ぬるいわね。
Oh God, what a way to compare the two. Holy shit. Oh, oh my God, that is absolutely nuts. My lukewarm discomfort is a fart no windstorm compared to what you're going through. I love it. I love it so much. Uh, well, I have read Stay Night, all three routes. Um, I have read. Wow, it's gone. It's fucking gone. I mean, I've read a chunk of the original Tsukihime, not the remake. I never actually managed to finish that visual novel. Um, I'm pretty sure I read a chunk of that one. Uh, so to be honest, not very many. I'm looking to get into more visual novels. There are a bunch on Steam actually that look not too bad that I might end up going through. But we'll see. Alice's uncharacteristically vulgar comment helped Aoko feel a little more like her usual self. Oh, you still have to read the Fate Stay Night visual novel? Yeah, I've read it, and, well, all three routes of it. Personally, I prefer Saber's route, the Fate route, to Unlimited Blade Works or Heaven's Feel. But I mean, I get that a lot of people prefer the Unlimited Blade Works route, and I mean, that's great for them. She felt reassured having a comrade in arms by her side instead of a concerned neighbor.
そう。アリスもやられたの。状況は大体予想してるけど、一応細部を聞かせてくれない？
Aoko remained horizontal as she spoke with a cool tone. Despite Aoko's condition, Alice granted her request. After all, they had known each other for 2 years. Alice knew exactly what kind of anesthesia Aoko Awazaki needed right now. Alice Kuwanji's battle with Touko Awazaki ended in the former's victory. You know, shit. Poor Alice got absolutely thrashed. The Thames Troll was a special familiar, even among fairy tale monsters. While lacking the incredible reality warping abilities of Flat Schnark, its sheer mass, durability, and strength were second to none. Touko's rune magic was rendered completely ineffective by its stone armor. In all fairness to Touko, most mages would not stand a chance against the bridge giant. The reason lay in the mystic's body. As a general law of magecraft, a mystic will lose to a stronger, older mystic. The history of the bridge giant dated back to well over 1,000 years. Its origins could be traced to the 1st century when Britannia was conquered by the Romans. Conversely, despite having roots dating back to the Age of Gods, runes had unfortunately been lost to time. Rune magecraft was little more than an attempt to revive and use a dead art. However, monsters from fairy tales, like the troll, were different. They lived on in the hands of Alice Kuwanji. The magical world was vast, but one could properly count on one hand the number of magecraft that still functioned after being enchanted into existence a millennia ago, as Alice's ploys did. In contrast, Touko the rune user was only about 2 decades old. Carving a rune took only a moment. There was no way a quick spell could defeat the perfection or personification of London Bridge in Alice's homeland. That being said, a beast that had appeared that surpassed even those from fairy tales. Beowulf, the Golden Beast. It seemed absurd to compare a small and relatively powerless wolf to a towering stone giant. The Thames Troll attacks were earthquaking. A direct hit from its 50-ton strikes would smash anything to pieces, while a glancing blow would still create mincemeat. And yet, the beast had attacked head-on and torn right through it. The wolf's fur bristled, and the creature metamorphosized like liquid. It was a breathtaking display. The wolf howled at the moon as if in joy and streaked forth like a bolt of golden light. In an instant, the duel was decided. The radiant spear of a wolf flew straight through the giant's chest and sank its teeth into its heart. The troll exploded. Chunks of stony muscle rained down. Luminous fur scattered in the wind. The two mystics disappeared without a trace and returned from whence they came. The curtain fell on the battle straight out of mythology. There, among the rubble of the fairy tale monster, was the golden wolf standing like a flame. What came after could barely be described as a battle. It was more like the slaughter of defeated pawns. The wolf leapt on Alice, disemboweling her with ease. Its claws cut through the protective wards on Alice's coat like a hot knife through butter. The golden wolf. This wolf, which understood human speech, could only be the magical creature known as the werewolf. Werewolves were the forest people of Western Europe, with origins far more ancient than fabricated vampire legends of the continent. However, none were known to have golden coats. It was said the most elite werewolf bloodlines boasted silver fur. Silver werewolves were pack leaders, and werewolves of that caliber were considered phantasmal rather than merely magical creatures. But a golden wolf was superior even to that, and so transcended human knowledge. Alice Kuanji's ploys were among the ultimate mystics to have been created by humankind. Therefore, the golden wolf could only have been a mystic born of the planet. When a celestial body has been active for millions, even billions of years, occasionally a miraculous droplet of creation spills over into our current world. This mystic had to be over 3,000 years old. A human mage? No, any mage living in the current magical paradigm would be helpless against the golden wolf. Not even in theory would they stand a chance of defeating it. Which means that this wolf was Aoko and Alice's worst nightmare.
そう。アリスがお手上げの相手だものね。私がどうにかできるはずもなかったわけだ。でも、要は魔術でなければいいのよね。テムズの動力は魔力だけど、テムズのパンチは純粋な衝撃でしょ。当たりさえすればぺしゃんこじゃないの。
残念だけど、あれ、基本は狼の姿なだけで、状況によって形を変えるわ。テムズの腕を受け止めた時は、大猿みたいになっていたし。
What it could... Oh man, that's
機関
rough.
銃やロケットで狙っても、かわされるか、体の硬い生き物に変化して防ぐんじゃないかしら。
Well, that could prove problematic.
地球上の生き物なら何にでも変われるってことか。でもまあ、質量までは無理かな。基本は2メートル台の生物のいいとこ取りってあたりで勘弁してほしいわね。 すごく関係ないけど、深海の生き物に変わられたらちょっと怖いと思わない？
That would be just wasteful. You've read 18 visual novels. Damn. Aoko narrowed her eyes as she bemoaned the creature's existence. The conversation appeared to have revived her fighting spirit. Once again, her eyes were focused and her thoughts were clear. Aoko was back to her usual self.
で、その後はアリスうまく逃げられたの？
いいえ。私もあの狼にやられたわ。
That's probably not the best way he could have written that line. But whatever. Alice explained how the wolf had pinned her to the ground. Incidentally, she kept the part about Sojyrou rather short. Alice herself was not entirely sure why she felt it necessary to leave most of that information out. The longest one you read would make this one short. Damn. That is long, I have to admit.
アリスが相手をした後、休む間もなく私のところに来たわけか。初めから昨日で決着をつけるつもりだったんだ、兄貴。姉妹かな。ここぞって時のタイミングは一緒だったの忘れてた。切り札は見せたからには敵を殲滅しなくちゃいけない。
100 hours, holy crap.
姉貴は視点を残り2つにしておいて、自分の正体を告げてこっちの戦力を分けさせた。その時点で奥の手を投入してくることは覚悟してたけど、まさか人狼なんて極物とはね。
Aoko let out a heavy sigh. Alice nodded slightly in agreement.
それはそれとして、宗十郎がアリスを助けに行くなんてね。感謝しなくちゃいけないんだろうけど、バカな真似してくれたわ。
Yeah, you should be freaking grateful. Yeah, it was definitely worth the 100 hours it took to read the whole thing. Nice.
私が東子の立場なら、報復の可能性は一つ残らず排除する。私たちがどうにかなった後、猫の手首ひねるみたいに片付けられるわよ、あいつ。
しずきくんならこちらで保護してもらってるけど。
Aoko's eyes widened.
うわ、どういう風の吹き回し？アリスがあいつの世話を焼くなんて。
だって放っておいたら青子が怒ると思って。
We wouldn't want you getting angry. Alice responded with her eyes closed. Aoko frowned in silent indignation, as if she wanted to protest where Alice got that idea from.
まあいいけど、それじゃあ今ここにいるんだ、宗十郎。姿が見えないけど、どうしたの？
He's like standing right over there. Oh, a murder mystery, huh?
彼なら気分を悪くして倒れたわ。今
Aoko furrowed her brow at collapsed. Sure, he was under the church's protection, but had Touko set the wheels in motion for his death?
何があったの？一体。
Alice paused for a moment before carefully answering the question.
それが彼、あなたを見て嘔吐したの。
She had decided to be blunt. Yeah, that's being blunt, all right. Aoko was taken aback. For several seconds, dim sunlight leaked through the window. 10 out of 10? Nice. Once she had found her voice again, she muttered,
いいけど、ひどい侮辱よね、それって。
perhaps amused or perhaps exhausted from staying up all night. Alice cracked a tiny giggle.
何よ。そんなにおかしい、アリス。
さあ、どうかしらね。けど、しずきくんにも言い分はあるでしょう。
Oops. My finger twitched and cut her off. Aoko appraised her physical state. She was dressed in a hospital gown. Bandages covered the majority of her body. Her right leg was in a plaster cast. Since she could move her right arm, she brought her bandaged fingers to her throat.
そっか。思い出した。あのガキ、まず私の首元に噛みついたんだっけ。すごかったわよ、首が噛み砕かれるのって。ゴキーンって音が頭の中に響いて、気持ち悪いったらなかったわ。
That would be an interesting sensation to have. Hearing your neck just get snapped around. Oh. And it not killing you? That's just
あそこから
hardcore.
好き勝手やられたもんだから、つ
But
い
then
忘
again,
れてた。
apparently, if you have a magic crest, you can survive being shot in the head, so... Aoko sounded upbeat, but the look in her eyes was anything but. She had been torn to pieces, but her life had been mercifully spared. At least she hadn't been dismembered. She had been bitten, beaten, and her bones broken. Most of the visual novels that you've read are horror, Type Moon, or Spike Chewsoft? I'm not familiar with his visual novels, I don't think. Even if her spine was broken, as long as her body was alive, the crest would piece it back together. Despite the crest easing the pain a little, she still hurt enough to want to kill that wolf 100 times over.
視点は全部壊された。これで三崎氏の霊脈はフリーってわけね。全容を把握してるのはうちらだけの特権だったけど、東子は昔から知ってる以上、解析の手間もいらないと。真剣な話、所有権の書き換えまで何時間かかると思う？
東子さんなら2日かからないでしょうね。
I have heard of Steins Gate. Okay. All right. Well, I have definitely heard of Steins Gate.
支店の修復は土地そのものに任せるしかない。支店のプロテクトが治る頃には、この町はもう彼女のものよ。
明日の夜明けとともに破産する我が身とはね。それで、アリスの方はどうなの？まだいける？
思考魔術だけなら少しは。あとは 小道具に頼ることになるでしょうね。
Wow,
あ
both of
あ、お
them
話に
tapped
ならな
out.
い。
Damn. You recommend the Steins Gate Zero visual novel. Alright. Aoko went silent again, staring straight at the ceiling. Alice knew all too well what that look meant.
それでもやるんでしょ、青子は。
Oh, probably. Oh, the Steins Gate Zero visual novel is on Steam. Cool.
まあね、
I'll have to
諦めるのってで
check
きない
out
から。
the page for it.
で、そういうアリスはどうなのよ。
私は、一度自分のものになったものは、決して人には渡さない。
Aoko muttered in agreement to Alice's terse response. Alice's intense attachment to her possessions was enough to make even Aoko shiver. Once something is mine, it stays mine. To take it a step further, betrayal was an unforgivable sin. This personal motto was further proof of her uncompromising nature.
オッケー、決まりね。じゃ、悪いけどもう少し休ませて。今晩までにはなんとか動けるようにするから。
If the nun who stitched her back together had heard that, she would have fainted. Aoko could barely even eat in her current condition. Even so, Alice nodded and stood up. As Aoko's partner, she knew that once her mind was made up, she had to trust her. Silently, the girl in black began to take her leave. She stopped in front of the door, her hand to her mouth.
アリス？
Aoko was curious, suspecting that Alice had something silly to say again. Quite the contrary. Okay, your top three are Danganronpa, number 1, Umi Neko, Tsukihime. Fair. I do know a little bit about Danganronpa. Not sure I know much about Umi Neko. So I can't really relate to those being as high on your list, but I could definitely agree with Tsukihime being a definite topper. Instead of blushing, Alice furrowed her brow like she was thinking over a difficult riddle.
アリスー？
Aoko called out, but Alice remained with her back to her roommate.
なんで間に合ったのかしら。
I have been wondering that by myself. How did Sojyrou get from the mansion to that park in less than 10 goddamn minutes? Umi Neko is good if I have the time. Is it a really long one? She spoke as if the words had accidentally burst from her thoughts. Alice's question was about something Aoko could not possibly have guessed.
あの時もそう。私たち、始発で帰ってきたのに。
She carried on mumbling at the door. Oh, that's the 100-hour one. Okay. Unable to find an answer, Alice gloomily put her hand on the doorknob.
言いたくないなら別にいいけど。 何がどうしたっていうのよ、アリス。
Alice did not respond. She opened the door to leave the room and left a few words hanging in the air.
どうでもいいことだけど、ゆいかさんにはしずきくんは見えなかったそうよ、青子。
The door closed with a thud.
そりゃまた珍しい。
What doesn't happen every day? Aoko mumbled to herself from her bed, seemingly slightly happier. Blind since birth, Yukiya saw the world through her other senses. She was especially sensitive to enemies or those who bore ill will, and typically viewed almost everyone as a threat, presumably because that was the easiest thing to pick up on. So when she said she couldn't see Sojyrou, that meant he was completely harmless. And then that harmless individual decided to pay the small sick room a visit. Sojyrou looked like a stiff breeze could knock him over. It made Aoko wonder who the real patient was.
何しに来たの、あんた。
Great murder mystery. Ooh. Though Aoko could barely move, she was still able to give him a cold shoulder. Her expression gaunt, Sojyrou grunted something or other before beginning to speak more coherently.
アリスが客間で眠ったから礼拝堂にいたんだけど、人が集まりだしたんで、こっちに逃げてきた。
あ、礼拝の時間か。クリスマスだってのによくやるわ。
It was indeed Christmas, but regular Mass was on Christmas Eve. The ones gathered in the chapel must be truly devout followers. Tourists were rare in Mizaki after all. So much so that almost no one visited the area this time of year. The worshippers must have been locals.
それで別にどうってことないでしょ。探せば顔見知りもいるんじゃない？
Aoko was distant as ever. She clearly had not forgotten the fact that he had vomited when he saw her, and a hint of spite leaked into her voice. Then again,
いや、ちょうどいい機会だから、いろいろと聞きたくなって。
I did watch his waifu tier list. I did indeed.
少し話をしていいかな。
Since Aoko was always in a bad mood, Sojyrou did not pick up on anything out of the ordinary. She wanted to tell him to go drink some water because he looked ready to collapse, but he didn't seem aware of his own condition. And to be fair to him, Alice didn't say Aoko was in bad shape. Given how unaccustomed to blood Sojyrou was, it was no wonder he had fainted.
ああ、そうか。話なんてまだ無理だな。すまない。出直してくる。
Sojyrou seemed to have misunderstood Aoko being deep in thought as not having the stamina to speak. Naturally, this did not sit well with Aoko.
待ちなさいよ。話だけなら別に構わないわ。やる気も手余してるし、暇つぶしがてらに相手してあげるわよ。ま、退屈しのぎにしてはちょっとグレード下がるけど、この
Oh
際
yeah,
贅沢言ってられない
you
し。
got a stomach flu the day that it came out? That sucks. That sucks. Yeah, it was a good one. Sojyrou sensed this was going to be rough, but took a seat on the chair next to the bed.
で、何が聞きたいの？
Aoko spoke energetically in an attempt to distract her from her weakened appearance. Naturally, she knew she was fooling no one.
やっぱり青崎は強いな。安心した。
Sojyrou said, nodding in admiration. Aoko shot him an unimpressed look in response to the unwanted praise.
あんたってほんと間が悪いわ。
ん？
いいわよ、別に。私の夢の話だから、そっちが気に病むことは。
I mean, it was a good tier list. Let's be honest. She glowed, remembering. Come to think of it, almost everyone in her dream was here in the church, turning her dour expression into an irritated one.
やめやめ、こんなつまんない話。聞きたいことがあるなら手っ取り早く済ませちゃってよ、宗十郎。
よかった。じゃあ、まず今の状況を聞かせてくれないか。トウコさんの話じゃ、俺も無関係じゃないそうだし。
Sojyrou spoke calmly, making Aoko wonder if he really understood the gravity of his situation. He was Touko's enemy now. He was defenseless and needed protection. Neither Aoko or Alice could help him, and the church could withdraw their sanctuary at any moment. He had picked a side, and that had turned him from innocent bystander into a target. Yeah? Is that how that came about? Nice. The answer he sought was as simple as that. He knew the facts. He was not a mage and was therefore powerless.
まあ、それでもアリスは助けられたわけだし。
Aoko did owe him for that. For the waifu fans, yes, yes. We all thank you for that. To say thanks, she decided to at least give him the whole story up to now.
よし、今までの経緯も含めて軽く説明してみましょうか。私も何か得るものがあるかもしれないし。
Aoko composed herself before beginning her explanation. The battle began at the end of November. A lot had happened since then, including meeting Sojyrou.
事の起こりは1ヶ月前。
Oh, we are literally gonna do the whole thing,
三
huh?
崎市に貼られた結界の端っこが何者かに消されたのが発端だった。私が跡継ぎになってから5度目の三崎市を狙う敵の登場ってわけ。今回の敵は私たちとは直接戦わず、まず土地を奪うところから始めたわ。今までのやつは私たちを半人前と舐めていたから、大抵は真正面から仕掛けてきて、勝手にアリスの猟犬の餌食になったんだけど、まあ、町の結界には2種類あって、侵入者を見つけるものと、土地の力を有効利用するものがあるの。
you try to help him with video ideas sometimes. That's very nice of you.
敵が壊したのは土地の結界の方で、これが全部壊されると、私やアリスは土地の所有権を失ってしまう。土地のないはぐれ魔術師と同じになっちゃうのよ。もちろん、そうならないように侵入者をあぶり出すための結界があるんだけど、こっちには何の反応もなかった。ま、当然よね。今回の敵は私の姉貴、青崎東子その人だったんだから。青崎の結界は同族である姉貴を敵とみなさなかった。
That is true. An Aozaki bounded field is not going to recognize another Aozaki as a threat.
あるいは、姉貴は結界の抜け道、構造の資格をついたのかもしれない。もともとうちの後継者はあの人だし、それぐらいの知識はあったでしょう。
You asked him it would be great if he could stream Nikkei. And then we started getting Nikkei streams.
そうして、姉貴は私たちに見つかることなく、好き勝手に結界の視点を壊し始めた。時間をかけてゆっくり壊していったのは、外からやってきた部外者を演じていたからでしょうね。さすがに連続して壊されれば、こっちも身内の犯行だと疑うし。うち、親戚である浅木家とは仲悪いままだしさ。ま、姉貴の芝居に騙された私たちが間抜けなんだけど、セオリーとして結界崩しは長丁場になるものなの。管理地の結界は強固に作られているからね。普通は半年単位での攻防になる。攻める側はまず結界を形取る視点が何個あるか、それがどの5大要素でくくられているか、退去のもちろん管理地の魔術師たちの目を盗みながら。対して守る側は侵入者がいることに気づくから、悪さをされる前に敵の拠点を見つけ出してこんな感じで結界崩しは長期戦、あるいは前哨戦になるものなの。大抵は攻める側が視点を壊すぞとアピールして土地の持ち主を翻弄疲弊させてから、魔術師同士の直接対決で決着がつくわ。なんで結界を全部壊す必要はないのよ。管理地の持ち主を始末した方が早いし、その後は術式さえ解読しちゃえば土地を結界ごと横取りできる。
That's really actually a good way to go about it.
わざわざ壊して作り直すより、昔からある結界の方が土地に馴染んでいて強力だしで一石二鳥でしょ。
Well, I've said before, if there are any games or visual novels that my viewers want to see on the channel, absolutely, by all means, let me know what they are. That was how Aoko and Alice were duped. They never thought the enemy would waste time and effort needed to break all the sigils.
だから私とアリスはとりあえず受けに回った。
You like to help your fave YouTubers? Well, I can tell you that we appreciate the extra ideas and whatnot. It's actually kind of helpful. But yeah, any games or visual novels that any of my viewers and whatnot want to see on the channel, absolutely, let me know, and we'll see if we can get them on the channel. That's why Alice and I went on the defensive.
視点を探すために街を調査している敵を待ち伏せて、これを片っ端から倒そうって。でもそのうちの一つがケチのつき始めだった。三崎町の公園で山張って待ち受けていた時、どうでもいい第三者が覗き見してやがったのよ。
Busybody saw something at the local park. Indeed, it was the ultimate taboo in the world of magecraft. The existence of mages must never be revealed to outsiders.
その後のことはわかるでしょ。私は敵との小競り合いをアリスに任せて、それより重要な目撃者狩りに専念せざるを得なくなった。言っとくけど、これはあんたのことだからね。そこで我関せずみたいな顔しないこと。
Well, unfortunately, the Tsukihime remake, A Piece of Blue Glass Moon, is not on Steam. As far as I know, it's not on Epic Games either. And those are the only two, kind of, online game, things that I have at the moment. If I mean, I'll keep looking for Tsukihime, and hopefully it shows up on Steam or Epic, or I can find it somewhere. Steins Gate Zero definitely could be a possibility. I was thinking about, for my next live stream, stepping away from visual novels and doing something a little more action-based. No sooner had Aoko said that, Sojyrou gave her that exact look. Clearly, he had been listening, but not necessarily understanding.
ま、いいけどね。宗十郎がそんなだから秘密は漏れなかったんだし。で、あんたっていう目撃者を消そうとした私の単独行動は、敵にしても都合のいいものだった。
Yeah, I mean, it could be a good one to wait while we wait for Tsukihime. But like I said, I was thinking that for my next live stream, I'd step away from the visual novel just for a live stream, and well, at least, well, not just for one stream, but do a more action-y based game.
強敵であるアリスがいないんだから、敵はこれを機会に私を始末しようと特注品の人形を差し向けたと思っていたけど、あれはただの嫌がらせね、間違いなく。
Honor. Remind me, what is that one? That's like a fighter, isn't it? Like a fight, like it, along the lines of like Street Fighter or something?
そうでなきゃ私そっくりの人形なんて派遣するかっての。
Sojyrou nodded, thinking back to the Aoko replica.
あれのことは忘れてちょうだい。まあ、そこから先はあんたもうすうす知ってるでしょ。私とアリスは敵との戦いに専念することになって、毎日のように捜査の手を空振って、決戦の夜を迎えて、今は大体の経緯はこんなところよ。
Oh, that explanation was shorter than I thought it was going to be honest. She stared down at her body as if recalling what had happened would help her accept her current state. Under the sheet, magical energy steadily flowed through her partially bandaged body.
青崎、これまでの君たちの話は分かった。けど、肝心の今の状況はどうなっているんだ？
You recommend Silent Hill 2? It's cheap and great story and gameplay? Silent Hill has a definite possibility. What I might do is take a couple of suggestions, and then do a poll with a couple action games that I put on there, and we'll take your Silent Hill 2 suggestion, and maybe we'll do a poll for the next stream, like the which game we'll do for the next stream. Yes. More than anything, he wanted to know what happened to her the night before.
バカね。状況も何も完全に私たちの負けじゃない。
Judging by her tone, she would have raised both hands sarcastically in celebration if she could.
負けた？
事実は正しく受け止めなくっちゃね。
All right, well, we'll do that then. I'll put Silent Hill 2 on the list, and I'll come up with a couple other action-y games, and we'll do a poll, and we'll go from there.
5つの視点が全部壊された時点で
See what I end up playing next on stream. Yes.
管理地の所有権は宙ぶらりで、明日にはトーコの手に渡るでしょう。で、それを阻止したいこっちは、私もアリスもこのありさま。もう立場は逆転したから、これから私たちは挑戦者。つまり、はぐれ魔術師ってことよ。
Which meant that Aoko, Alice, and Sojyrou only had a few more days with which to utilize the church's services. Adia Church was not only an arm of the Mages Association, but also a branch of the Holy Church that monitored heresy. Aoko and Alice were the owners of Mizaki City's spiritual lands, but they belonged to neither of these organizations. Oh, I'll spend an arm and a leg on a game if it'll go over well. Though we gotta keep in mind, I am running on an older system here, so I'm not sure if I could do anything too terribly new. Like I said, I'm barely able to run like Black Myth, so. Once those rights were lost, the church would have no reason to provide any further aid.
エイリ神父はコウモリだから私を助けてくれたけど、ユイカさんは教会の代行者だから、傷が塞がったなら明日にでも出て行けって言ってくる。教会にとっちゃ魔術師なんてもともと排除すべき商売敵だからね。バカリツカは泣きつけば力にはなってくれるでしょうけど。
Sojyrou understood little of what Aoko was talking about.
そうじゃなくて、青崎。昨日の夜、何があったんだ
？Sojyrou pressed her, and Aoko really wished he had not.
見てわからない。惨敗なんてものじゃないわ。
Whole games would not do much. RAM would help. I mean, I guess. Like I said, I can run Black Myth. I've done it like 3 episodes playing Black Myth. I'm just really bad at it, so that's why I'm only at 3 episodes. That's why there are only 3 episodes. Because I'm really, really bad at it, so I have to... I'm waiting till I like get really high level before I continue because I am that bad at it.
喉に食いつかれる。体中好き放題
I
噛まれ
mean,
まくる。
unless you want to like watch me get my ass kicked for like an hour or something on stream.
ま、アリスのチョコレートのおかげで出血死は免れたけど。
Which, I mean, could be fun in its own right. She knocked on the case around her leg. Aoko spoke casually, but was trying to hide how much she wanted revenge for being humiliated. In contrast, Sojyrou felt empty. I have Epic Games and Steam. The little color he had in his face began to fade. Was he repulsed by the terrible situation, or were his instincts telling him to flee? Regardless, he appeared very human.
なんでそこで固まる？あ、そっか。私を見て吐き出しちゃうぐらいナイーブなんだっけ、宗十郎ってば。大丈夫よ、今はくっついてるから。ゆいかさんは治療専門だし、私だってただやられてたわけじゃないし。復元は青崎の得意分野だから、あれくらい。
She gave him a reassuring look, but his expression was unchanged. Aoko had expected him to worry, but this level of concern made it hard for even her to berate him. Feeling embarrassed, she started talking again.
けど姉切ったら、どうやってあんなのを手なずけたんだろう。金の狼なんて伝説の中にしかいないと思ってた。神代の神秘であるあいつには千年クラスの魔術じゃないと太刀打ちできない。かといって殴り合いでどうにかできる相手じゃないし。
As images of the night before entered Aoko's mind, she bit her lip in anguish.
金の狼。
Conversely, the bizarre phrase snapped Sojyrou out of his state of shock.
そう、黄金の人狼。金狼って言った方がいいのかな。狼男って言ってもわからないわよね。人間と狼のいいとこ取りみたいなやつと思えばいいわ。野獣というより魔獣の類よ。普通の人狼なら対抗手段はあるんだけど、トウコが連れてるのは黄金の毛並みをした怪物でさ。あれは原初の人狼の血統で、魔獣を通り越して幻獣の域に達している。
Yeah, which makes him hard as hell to kill.
聖域の相手には、そいつらを上回る神秘。積み重ねた時間とか魔術の奥義じゃないと無効化されるのよ。魔術は万能だけど、この年月の差だけは覆せない。ま、人間の魔術師にとっては天敵みたいな自然災害ね。
Her words indicated more admiration than hatred. The way she'd whispered about the wolf strangely made sense to Sojyrou.
何？
いや、要するに青崎たちじゃかなわない相手なんだな。
There is something out there that Alice and Aoko have a hard time whooping ass on.
なんてひどいやつだ。アリスはお腹が裂かれてた。青崎は傷ついてないところはないぐらいだ。子供なのに。いや、子供だから加減がないのか。
Shojiro's face was ghastly pale as he muttered nervously. Aoko merely nodded in agreement.
ほんと。人の体を何だと思っているのかしらね。あのお子さん。なぬ？
Aoko raised her head. She looked as if she'd seen a ghost.
今、子供って言った？あんた、なんでそんなことまで知ってるの？
やっぱりそうなのか。金色の髪なんて2人もいないと思ったんだ。そいつなら一度見かけたことがある。青崎が口にしたような怪物じゃなかったけど、森の奥で。
We were... Oh, right when he was back at the... back on cleanup duty, on winter cleanup duty. Oh shit, that was that kid?
木の実が2人がかりでとっちめようなんて怖いこと言い出してさ。金一個ないから止めたんだよ。
His tone was as curious as the things he was trying to articulate. Aoko, however, had more pressing matters. Much more pressing.
見たって、どこで？
学校の旧校舎。あ、そういえば挨拶程度なら話もしたっけ。一度だけアルバイトの時に牛肉50キロを生で届けたことがあって。
この大バカ者！
Oh god, Aoko's like freaking the hell out. A strangely satisfying slap rang out. Ignoring her wounds completely, Aoko had grabbed her slipper and thrown it at Shojiro's unassuming face as hard as she could. She panted as Sojyrou was knocked completely out of his chair. For a while, neither moved.
なんで怒るんだ、青崎。
The boy asked, unfazed as he slowly picked himself up. He sat cross-legged as Aoko scowled at him like an enemy.
当たり前じゃない。なんでそんな怪しいこと黙ってんのよ、あんたは。
The remake for Silent Hill 2 is on Steam? Okay.
言うほどのことでもない。
Well, that
第
should
一、
be easy to get
君
my
たちに
hands
こん
on
な
then.
話をしても怒られるだけじゃないか。
Aoko knew he was right, and so she swallowed her words. She imagined themselves at dinner.
ところで今日、牛肉の山を担いで届けたんだ。一匹丸ごと。いや、あるところにはあるものだね。お金と食欲。
If he had actually said it, Aoko and Alice's response would have been less than cordial.
それはそうだけど。
You
本当
prefer
に
the OG
金
than the
髪の子供
remake?
が旧校舎にいたの？
Is the OG Silent Hill 2 way better?
それが青崎の言う人狼かどうか自信はないけど、少なくとも町中の料理店が入れ替わりでおかしな注文を届けてるのは事実だ。駅前。
確かに食事のたびにあいつを外に出してちゃ目立つだろうけど。
Or they did some censorship in the OG? She did not want to believe it, but the child had to be the werewolf. Could Touko really have been so careless as to hide him in plain sight? Oh, the remake did the censorship. Ah, okay. That usually happens with remakes these days. It didn't matter at this point. With the werewolf's habitat revealed, Touko's base had been revealed too. To take over the bounded field, she needed an inconspicuous place to store materials. Mizaki High School's old school building was the perfect place.
つまり、すべての鍵はあんたが隠し持ってたって
And,
わけね。
usually the OG on something has either no or far less censorship. That's just usually the way it goes.
隠していたんじゃない。だいたい青崎が裏山の掃除に参加していたらその時に分かったんじゃないか。
Well, yeah, if she'd actually helped, she might have found out for herself.
飛び丸一人に任せず青崎も掃除に出ればよかったんだ。
In response to Sojirou's infallible logic, Aoko snapped her fingers. That is so mean. He's right, though. Instead of another slipper missile, she let the faithful white collar express how she felt. Oh, and the OG has better voice acting, too? I mean, if I have to go with the remake, I have to go with the remake, right? And with the tightening of the collar, Sojyrou realized something. Aoko had changed. From the bed, she looked down on him with a commanding glare. Though weak from her injuries, she was as sharp as ever. You would be forgiven for forgetting she was ever a patient. She was raring to fight. It went without saying her rage was directed... It went without saying who her rage was directed at. Aoko responded in a vulnerable tone. Perhaps she'd been taken by surprise. Now she had an objective and she'd been lost in her own little world.
ありがとう、宗十郎。
They did improve the combat in the remake. Again, that does tend to happen. He expected her to be sarcastic, but this was different. She was genuinely thanking him. He had never known her to be like this and was taken aback.
あのね、とにかく、トウコの居場所が分かったのはあんたのおかげだから、礼ぐらい言っておこうと思ったの。
Oh wow, holy crap, it has been 3 hours already. Damn. Wow. That's crazy.
それがお気に召さなかった？
We're gonna wrap it up
お
here
礼を言
right
ってもら
quick.
えるのはいいことだけどまさかその体でトウコさんのところに行くつもりか。
His tone was closer to scolding than sympathetic. Aoko simply nodded resolutely.
取られたものは取り返すものよ、宗十郎。それもすぐに相手のものになってしまう前にね。ぐずぐずしている暇はないわ。
She sounded unshakable. Even so, Sojyrou would not back down.
勝ち目がなくてもか。暇はないと言うけど今はそれ以上に休息が必要だろう。その傷だって今は見れるけど昨日はひどかったじゃないか。生きていたのが幸運なぐらいだ。
違うわ。あれは幸運なんかじゃない。そんな玉かっていうのよ、トウコが。
幸運じゃない。
そう。トウコはね、私が生き残れる程度の傷にとどめたのよ。今回は見逃してやるから、もう一度やってこいって意味でね。
Well, with that somewhat chilling thought, we're gonna call this one here. Thank you, everyone, for joining me. Oh, you got A&W for dinner today? Lucky you. Damn it, you're making me hungry now, Dawson, you big meanie. Thank you, everyone, for joining me today for the stream. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I have been. All right. So we should have another episode of One Piece coming out on Friday. And for anybody that missed it, we had our episode of Fate come out this morning, so be sure to go check that out. All right, guys, well, have a great one. Bye for